I wish you would. Hey, how y'all doing? Little 13th floor elevators going on there. Yeah, if you haven't heard of them, you should check them out. They were quite the group back in the day and back in Austin, Texas, and probably one of my favorite psychedelic groups ever. They had an instrument that they carved out of a whiskey jug, and they put a microphone at the bottom of it, and it had a very unique sound, kind of like, I don't know if you've ever heard of Zydeco music, but yeah, that's another one. So hey, favor everybody. So good to see everyone here. Let me just get my sky pilot here. There's a big hug to everybody. The world is well, I'm going to just speak that there is a guiding light. And I'll just put it that way. Let me get that going. So, BOSTO, be of service to yourself and then be of service to others. Keep the balance. It's kind of a teeter-totter thing anyway. So, what's up? Hey, David Barry, how are you doing? Susie Q, thank you. Got some emails to return, and y'all are just the best people. I got to tell you what, very kind people here. Just they really are. Hey, speaking of kind people, such as David Castle. So hugs right back at you, Susie. So thank you. Lost in Space, how you doing? Beloved Abstract. Gaia, how are you? How are you and Paul doing? I send you a favor, surround you. Yeah. Hey, Kent, what's up? Good to see you. Beautiful Fireborg. Hey, how are you doing? Good to see ya. Martin and Heidi, yeah, everyone around the world. So, yeah, let me just do something right here. I want to make sure that that doesn't go away. Um, so give me 1 second there, and we'll do that. That's a great recording of that. So let's see what's up here. There we go. Got that one going. So hey, we're all good. Bus is fine. Did a tune up today, and it's looking good, baby. So hey, Suzanne, what's up? Good to see you. P Hatchet, hello from Ireland. Greetings. Welcome. Lots of folks from my genetic homeland. Yeah. Scottish, Welsh. Yeah. German, Italian. I think I even got 1.1% Azerbaijani Jew. So there you go. All around the world. You could really say then, I guess, really literally, I would be a wandering Jew, right? Anyway, so what's happening? Hey, Posey, good to see you. Little Red Haze, what's up? Hey, Elderberry, good to see you as well. Cheers, everyone. What a world we're living in. It is, it's, wow, that's all I got to say. I spend time just meditating now and just thinking, all right, if we're not thinking peace and that's not getting us the results, then what do we need to put in there into our meditative thought moment? Okay. How about tranquility? That's a good word. Tranquility. If you're tranquil, it means you're calm, right? How you doing? I'm tranquil, baby. How you doing? People gonna look at you going, what? Uh, Pleasantness is another one. Uh, but we need something. We really do. I just believe that there's going to be a great peace movement. I tell you, the show yesterday with Trina was just outstanding. So much in those shows. I got to go back. Hey, Big Al, what's up? Good to see you, buddy. Say hi to Perry there. Much love to you both. Speaking favor over you. Yeah, that's a cool backdrop, isn't it? Going to be talking about this. It is interesting that no matter what a person's perspective is, if you can get out in outer space, we don't have anything out there. L1, I guess, would be the closest. That's 1,000,000 miles out. But no matter how you look at the Earth, on the no matter how you look at it, it's still going to be a flat surface. It's going to be round, like my shirt says. It's round. It's very difficult to get a 360-degree view of the Earth. I have this one paper and like 51 different things when he points out that most of us take for granted. Gravity, for instance. So what causes gravity? I'm becoming convinced it's electromagnetic. Just my thought. I don't know. Hey, beloved abstract, what's up? What we really need is nothing. Yeah, that's that in a sense, according to the book Etadorfa, which is Aphrodite backwards, the man who started it all, that is the place. Nothing is peace. If there's no disturbance, if there's no vibration, no force going against another force, no inertia, it would be nothing. Don't know. So let's see. Hey Nina, what's up? Good to see you, dear. So John Price, good to see you. Paul Joe, Jenny, hello. Yeah, that's what I think it is. The primer fields. Yep. Just a thought, as they would say. Justice for all. Good to see you. Master of magnetism. I love that. That's cool. Lynn, how are you doing? Good to see you. So, got some pretty cool stuff lined up. Staying on this whole Earth theme, this week was Earth Week. It's interesting how little of our planet we are truly aware of. So we're going to be going over a couple of great papers. This one is, I think this is David Vanderleff, I believe. Now he has an interesting perspective. In here, this is his paper. Yeah, David Vanderper. I love this guy's work. This is Earth is not a planet, but a giant plant. Now, have an open mind and give him a listen to on this. He says the Earth is basically a big hole caused by a gigantic event. Okay. Probably an impact caused by a meteor, the Big Bang, or a caldera, volcanic depression caused by empty underground chambers. It's an interesting thought. Or for some nuclear reason, ancient wars. Listen, the folks in India, their greatest gift to mankind, besides their belief systems, which are many of them very cool, is the fact that we know in their pantheon, there were the gods, the blue aliens. They used nukes. We know the story in the book of Genesis. Sodom and Gomorrah was nuked. And we have evidence that says the same thing happened to Mars. Anyway, he goes on to say, as a result, some 3 out of 4 plant and animal species went extinct about the same time, dinosaurs, due to the supply of minerals as a nutrient medium combined with water and oxygen. New life was created in this crater. Now, folks, the crater is much bigger than what we have been led to believe. This gigantic crater has the typical characteristics, filled with meltwater, surrounded by a board and a central peak. The Earth is a huge, irregular, annular impact crater on a frozen plateau that contains a lake, oceans, and continents. The impact split elemental particles, i.e., oxygen was created. Gold and titanium rotated around each other's axis, causing magnetism day and night. This was the breeding ground for new life, vegetation, and new organisms. and in turn was attracted another life, both already existing animals and humans. Due to the high oxygen content, all life was much larger. We found out that there was a time that the oxygen saturation level was 30% or higher. Today it's 20% or less. So both plants, animals, insects, and humanoids. I like this. Told you this guy, I have a lot of his papers, and they're a delightful read. This oasis is the ice also attracted people from much further. They named this crater Earth. Other synonyms are errata, errati, arade, arth, terra, terra ground, grund, Gaia, Danya, the same meaning in every language. Ground. Interesting. So here's his conception. Those of you who are listening, you have to go back and watch this. So here is this frozen, I don't know what you call it, something galactic or some plane, I don't know. Then elements, this is the gold and the titanium that began to spin in what would be later. There was a event that happened. The formation of Earth, Terra, was after this event, this impact. And in here you can see the magnetic center, North Pole. Sun equals gold, AU. Sun worship. Moon is titanium, Ti, black sun. So you have gold plus AU plus titanium, Ti, which equals magnetism. Look at that. Te, a, u. So all species are extraterra and came here on their own, terra, except for the human hybrid created in Mesopotamia. You can see how this huge event, we get stories of an event that happened for the flood. We have the events of Tiamat. Yeah. So the name Earth means land, which equals ground, which equals soil. The name Earth means, again, and you can see how in every people's language, the Germanic, the Danya, which I believe are the Middle East or Eastern peoples. You have the Germanic people, the Anglo-Saxon people, the Old English. Interesting. So he goes back and he starts with Pangaea. Pangaea, or Pangaea, was a supercontinent that existed during the late Paleozoic and early Mesozoic eras. It is assembled from earlier continental units approximately 335 million years ago, and it began to break apart about 175 million years ago. In contrast to the present Earth and its distribution of continental mass, much of Pangaea was in the southern hemisphere and surrounded by a super ocean. Pangaea was the most recent supercontinent to have existed and the first to be reconstructed by geologists. If you study this, you'll find out Pangaea, then it split apart. We'll get into that. The name Pangaea is derived from ancient Greek. The ancient Greek meant all, entire, or whole. And Gaia, Mother Earth, land. The concept that the continents once formed a continuous landmass was first proposed by Alfred Wagner and originated of the scientific theory of continental drift. So there's science to this. It's just not taught today. I don't know what's taught today. I don't think it's this, but it would be cool if it was. Anyway, and suddenly there was Earth. Due to the high oxygen content, all life was much larger, both plants, animals, insects, and humanoids. This oasis in the ice also attracted people from much further. And again, I got a lot of material to cover. And it gets interesting because it gets into this whole thought about us. Because the story just doesn't make sense. They named this crater Earth, as we said, and you can see this is the ground. It said, given that these extraterrestrial tribes had a small physical shape, they were forced to live in the giant trees simply because it was not safe on the ground. Now, I have a document I want to take real quick. Talking about the giants. You see, there has been a deliberate attempt. I don't know how successful, because obviously we're talking about it now, so it hasn't been all that successful, but it's considered to be more of a pseudoscience. However, I have seen these bones. I have seen bones of very large humanids. I don't know if they were human or not. In this paper here by Glenn W. Chapman, he wrote this in October of 2004. Excuse me. He writes that other giants remain from historic rather than prehistoric times. There have been brought to light on particularly every continent. In 1928, workmen blasting a tunnel in the Andes Mountains for the Ecuador Central Railroad suddenly opened an entrance to a buried cavern. Inside, the amazed workers gawked at stone coffins containing the skeletons of several 8-foot and 9-foot giants. The bones were forwarded to the university and disappeared. Yeah. A little background on this. There was a concerted effort in the early 20th century to eradicate any indication other than the doctrine of that time. And part of that is you could not have man, Homo sapien, at the top of a pyramid if, in fact, he would be almost at the bottom of the pyramid as far as the genealogical record is concerned. And so museums all around the world, Smithsonian, destroyed all the giant bones. There are some that have been left because some people really did believe that science should not be altered or tampered with merely because of a doctrine of a particular social culture at the time. I mean, look what the Taliban did in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, Iraq. These were treasured human ancestry artifacts that were destroyed. Sad how we do that, isn't it? Humans. We're so ignorant. Anyway, about the same time, a human skeleton, 17 feet tall, was unearthed at the Gargawan in the Philippines. And another specimens, 13 feet in size, made their appearance in Ceylon. In 1960, at Tura in southwest Assam state in India, near the border of Bangladesh, a crew was digging a foundation for a new building on a college campus. when their shovels came upon a curious mound of stones less than 4 feet below the surface. When their shovels came upon a curious mound of stone, removing the stones, the Indians exposed the remains of an 11-foot man. Conservative scholars were quick to dismiss the skeleton as being that of a large ape. Well, if we got 11 feet apes, that proves Bigfoot. That's all I got to say. And they probably wouldn't have appreciated that any more than probably what if someone was listening of that mindset, saying, "No, you're being cheeky, Steiger." Yes, I am. So anyway, with a consistent formed without even examining the bones. Boy, does that mentality exist still today. Yep. Those who did see the remains, however, identified them as unquestionably human. What is more, buried with the giant were charcoal bits, flint, and a metal bowl. As one witness remarked, I've never known these objects to be buried with an ape. I have to agree. It gets better. In 1969, construction workers excavating a site for a factory near Tersiana, 60 miles from Rome, bulldozed into a pit containing a row of 50 tilted tiled coffins. Each coffin contained a skeleton, all of which were between 6.5 and 8 feet tall. State archaeologist Dr. Luigi Calavucci, who analyzed the find, noted that the bones were remarkably well preserved, and all the specimens had been males and in their 40s when they died. The conservative suggestion was that this had been a group of special Roman legionnaires chosen for their height. Now, the average height back then was 5 feet. So if you were 6.5 feet, you would have stood out. If you were 8, yeah, you'd get small man's complex quick, wouldn't you? But there was a number of problems with this theory. First, the skeletons were not abnormally tall due to pituitary overgrowth. Rather, the bones were well proportioned and healthy, meaning they belonged to a truly giant race and not of short Roman stock. Second, no Latin inscriptions were found with the remains to date them to the Roman period. In fact, no inscriptions were dug up whatsoever, leaving the age of the remains very much in question. And third, as researcher John T. Battle noted, Roman soldiers were buried with their uniforms, armor, and weapons. Their military trappings were placed beside them in their coffin. But there was nothing in these coffins except them bones. You got to have them bones, baby. You got to have the, yeah, anyway. Without a doubt, the highest concentration of giant bones and giant artifacts are to be found in North America. Now, I did a whole video on this, folks. North America was the home of the giants. They've just eradicated the evidence, but their architecture is still around. Anyway, which sheds light on a peculiar aspect of a forgotten history of this continent. The Desert Weekly of Salt Lake City, Utah, reported in the issue On March 14th, 1891, a discovery made by workmen digging the foundation of a new hotel in Crenchadim, Arizona, about 50 miles southeast of Tucson. 8 feet below the surface, the workers came upon a large hardened clay sarcophagus, and prying the lid open, they found a granite case containing the skeleton of a man 12 feet tall. The unknown giant had long hair and wore a bird-shaped headdress. Unfortunately, by the time investigators arrived to examine the find, the bones had been crumbled to dust. About the same time, and in the same area, in an abandoned Indian cliff dwelling south of Winslow, Arizona, a cowboy came upon an enormous human skull. Author Jesse J. Benton, who recorded the incident in his book, Cows by the Trail, tells how the cowhand put his own normal-size Stetson on the giant skull. And in comparison, he reported, it looked like one of those tiny hats that merrymakers wear on New Year's Eve. So let's just stop here a second. Because you got to just stop here. Let's talk about this. They existed. Now, the question in my studies, and I have studied this because it always fascinated me about Genesis 6. Who were these men of renown? The Nephilim. Did a whole series on the Nephilim. But they've been blocked out because this becomes a problem, because if these beings, I don't know if they're humans. If they are humans, then we got real problems here, right here in the River City, is that if they have this large of craniums, come on, folks, are you telling me that they had a lesser IQ than we do? I mean, that's sometimes 4 or 5 times the mass, the cranial mass, the gray matter. And I can't help but not stop, and it's in my videos, go in the archives. It's also one of the things in my book is that they had to be psychic. The pituitary gland had to be enormous. It had to be bigger than my fist. Now, come on, walk with me, folks. We're intelligent people here. So if this pineal gland, pituitary gland, fully functioning, no calcification because they didn't put the shit in the water. You can't tell me that these beings would be perceived as gods because they would have the mental capacity, probably telepathy, telekinesis. I mean, I can only imagine what they were capable of doing. Think about it. Yeah. In neighboring Nevada, a number of giant remains have been discovered in and around Lovelock Cave near Lovelock, 80 miles northeast of Reno. In 1911, a guano mining operation began unearthing large bones and mummies of several individuals who had once stood between 6.5 feet and 9 feet in height. John T. Reed of the University of California, John J. Reed of one of the ore mining engineers, and also an amateur archaeologist, attempted to get professors from the University of California to see the strange remains. Finally, one did arrive, accompanied by another authority from New York. The two gathered potsherds and basketry and later published an article on these, but they would not have a thing to do with the nonconformist giant bones. 1931, more skeletons, this time 8 feet and 10 feet long, were brought to light from the Humboldt lake bed near Lovelock Cave. These had been bandaged in a gum-covered cloth, like Egyptian mummies. And in 1939, another specimen, this one 7 feet 7 inches, was discovered on the Freedman Ranch near Lovelock itself. I mean, come on. I mean, when you start finding this many in this, and actually it's a very small area when you think about it. Wow. Tragically, while various findings were all well documented, the bones themselves were either eventually thrown away, or in one case, a collection was destroyed by fire. Today, only a handful of the bones are kept by private museums in Winnemucca. In the Midwest and East, many more titans made unexpected appearances. From a mound 71 feet in diameter and about 4 feet high, located in Brewersville, Indiana, a number of investigators uncovered in 1879 a number of skeletons, one of which were 9 feet 8 inches long. A necklace of mica was strung about his neck, and at his feet a human figure of fired clay embedded with pieces of flint had been placed. Flints and axes, also buried with the bones, were determined by the Indiana State Historical Society to be unlike any of those of Indiana in that area. These remains, however, were lost in a flood in 1937. About the same time in Ohio, the American Antiquarian, volume 18, page 60, reported that another mound had produced a copper axe 22 inches long and weighed 38 pounds. Hey, Trina, that'd have been a hell of an axe to throw, wouldn't it? God, 38 pounds. Hello. I mean, you're talking about, yeah. In 1925, at Walkerton, 20 miles southwest of South Bend, Indiana, a group of amateur archaeologists opened still another mound, this one containing 8 skeletons from 8 to 9 feet tall, wearing heavy copper armor. The bones and artifacts were unfortunately scattered and lost. You see? You want to know why, we can't remember our past, and why, you have to question any religion, any theology, any doctrine, any dogma, any political, etc., that tells you that they know where we came from? They're lying and they're frying. No one knows. In New England states in 1880s saw the discovery of several gargantuan finds. During construction of a rail link between, I think that is at Casanova and Constanota, New York, 5 skeletons were unearthed, one of which was more than 11 feet long. Near Tioga Point, Pennsylvania, a team of antiquarians dug into yet another mystery mound. Among the team were the state historians Dr. O.P. Donshu, Professor A.B. Skinner of the American Investigating Museum, and Professor W.K. Moorhead of Phillips Andover Academy. The astounded experts uncovered the bones of 68 men, none of which were less than 7 feet tall. The remains were promptly sent to the American Investigating Museum in Philadelphia and just as promptly lost. You seen a pattern here? In 1886, an amateur archaeologist named W.N. Scoville probed into another mound at nearby Ellsberg and found bones of a man almost 8 feet. By far, the highest number of giant remains for one area have been unearthed in Minnesota. Again, the decade of the 1880s was the time when most of the significant finds were made. The St. Paul Pioneer Press on June 29, 1885, reported that mounds located west of Chesterfield yielded 6 skeletons, 7 to 8 feet tall, all with receding foreheads. That's what you call, 100 rabbits dancing backwards, a receding hairline. Anyway, I digress. So it showed that baldness was still a problem back then, huh? Okay, so other men of the 8-foot category, when unearthed by workers clearing ancient mounds to make way for the expansion of a brick factory and Durbash. These bones were so old that they crumbled to dust on exposure to air. At Clearwater, more mounds yielded up more giant skeletons with receding foreheads and buried upside down. Wow. At La Crescent, mounds contained Titan bones, were huge, flat cooking pans. The American Anthropologist, number 5, volume 8, page 229, described a stone axe head discovered with the pointed end embedded in the soil at Birchwood. It was exhibited in a collection of the Missouri Historical Society, which found the axe to be 28 inches long, 14 inches wide, and 11 inches thick. Holy crap. The problem was it weighed 300 pounds. Yeah. Hey, let's just face it. You've got humans or humanids, whatever you want to call them, that are carrying around 300-pound axes like, we would carry around an axe here. I don't want to meet those people. I'm sorry, I just don't want to meet them. I've read the books. They ate us. In August 1896, the St. Paul Globe published an account of the findings of a 9-foot skeleton on a farm near Lake Cronus. The bones of a 7-foot man turned up near Moose Lake, Inland Lake, while a gravesite at Pine City brought to light 7 more gargantuan skeletal frames. In 1882, a mound near Warren produced 10 giant skeletons. As well, to add to the mystery, the bones of horses, animals, which were not supposed to be found in America until after the advent or the Spanish in the 16th century. How did that happen? Why have so many giant remains been found in Wisconsin? It is noteworthy that the Sioux Indians have legends which claim that ages ago, their forefathers slaughtered a race of giants in a battle in Minnesota. In fact, many Indian legends throughout America recount how, before their people inhabited this land, a race of giants lived here, whom the Indians overwhelmed and wiped out in a war of genocide. Surprisingly, the Indian stories find confirmation in Greek, Hindu, Chinese, and Incan literature. Did a giant race once inhabit North America? Now, I want to go back to where we were reading. So, if you think about this now, if you got this large a population of giants, which they've been found all over the world, a continent like the United States that's about 3,000 miles from coast to coast would become very much, its resources would begin to become used very quickly. I mean, I think about this. I mean, that mass takes a lot of mass to be consumed to support that kind of energy. It gets weird. Here's the heterodry coat of arms. He goes, each country consisted one or more trees. So there's this huge tree that you can see in all of these shields. Look at them. The single tree, Earth. Now, some can say, well, that's symbolically, could be metaphorically, allegorically. Sometimes it just is what it is. It is often the remaining stumps that are later fossilized in mountain ranges and rivers that are regarded as natural boundaries of that country. I mean, we got it right here in South Dakota. This explains why often trees are depicted on the hardray and coats of arms of courts and viscounts. For some reason, all these gigantic trees were removed with a precision that was only possible through laser technology. With such an amount of silicon trees, it's possible to build a supercomputer with which we may be a part of at this very moment. If the Earth was much larger, if its atmosphere was different, what happened? I mean, you got to ask yourself, well, what's going on here? He goes on to say, given that these extraterrestrial tribes had a small physical shape, they were forced to live in the giant trees. Well, now we get to understand why. It says all trees grew on large floating islands held by the roots. There were various heights in trees. The gigantic ones were the oldest trees. Younger and smaller trees grew as parasites on the roots of the eldest. Wow. How many of you ever been to the Redwood Forest there in Northern California? Some of the most ancient, forested area. There may be other older in China and what have you. I don't know. I haven't read about that, but it's quite impressive when you go there. There's spirits there. Anyway, it says that these large floating islands were later called continents, originating from Latin, keep together, roots keep the soil together. The trees in which these tribes lived were later called countries, count trees. The number of trees was counted by the ruler of that area. The count, an important rank entitled within the royal peerage. This explains why Vilead, the impaler, impaled his victims on wooden tree trunks. It's also, if you go back and you read, depending on your point of view, there was never a crucifixion on a cross. It was a tree stump. We can interpret this as a frustration or anger that came about, as he goes on. Now, this is in, I guess this is, Chinese, I don't know, called the big tree. So now you can begin to see how this looks. So here's South America. Here's the root coming out of North America. This is Lemuria, Mu. You can see then the root proceeding up and over to Asia. And from Asia, you see the roots swirling around into what we call Russia. You see India is on this side of the root. The root continues to hit down into the Middle East, where it comes forth and now begins to nourish Africa. You see Europa, which is later to be Europe. And again, Earth is not a planet, but a giant plant. Now, this is just as good of a theory of continental drift as any of I've ever heard of. I mean, we have evidence. I mean, I think of Mud Fossil University. He has his great work there. I mean, the evidence, the dragons that are 300 miles long. You would have, if humanids were walking and existing, they would be enormous. In the book of Enoch, it is said, and I believe it's transferred over into the book of Genesis, but I know it is in the book of Enoch. It said that these giants were and if you go by the number, almost 4,500 feet tall. And that seems wild, but go and do it. You can see it for yourself. So who knows? It's an interesting thought. That's why we do this. Now, here is the root systems that begins to connect and hold the earth together. And I know this goes against, many mainstream thoughts on this, but, how do you keep your soil from being victim of erosion? Well, you want something to hold the soil in it. Ask the South about the kudzu plant. It'll tell you. So the roots go deep. It said the disappearance of these gigantic trees were accompanied by the loss of many lives. One of them were the so-called fallen angels, literally fallen or fallen down from the trees. This is why I love this. That's why I love this group. And we come here and it's this kind of stuff you go, okay, I'm going to have to add that to, to my thinking. This extensive intervention logically resulted in enormous natural disasters. Yeah. In principle, every continent is kind of a floating island on which once a number of gigantic trees grew. All of them were connected with huge roots. Even those gigantic roots were so big that they were called inner earth. Almost all words come from Latin, Rome, Romania, or the Middle East English. Middle English. Romania is surrounded by a mountain range called the Carpathians. The remainder of the tree bark with thousands of kilometers of caves and tunnels underneath. It is not a coincidence that just there, Transylvania is located with giant colonies of bats. That's why the original Romi people became homeless and thus nomadic, because their home tree was taken away from them. Since then, they were called Roma, gypsies, instead of Romi people. That's why they wear the symbol of the tree. Who would have known? The largest of these trees was in what is now the Himalayas, Tibet, Mongolia, China, Nepal, Vietnam, Russia. All these countries still carry the symbolism. Don't tell me them symbols don't mean something. There are the largest caves in the world, incredibly large, where entire cities can be built. This is the so-called inner earth. All previous cultures and religions speak about it, unless parts have been erased, as is often the case, unfortunately. The North Pole is Middle Earth. Middle English originates and comes from this region and was spoken during the Middle Ages. Scotland is what remains of the Highlands near the central magnetic peak. That's why the Queen chose this location. It's been linked to the ancestors for thousands of years. The Earth as we know it today is one big battlefield. 99% of the Earth has been destroyed through thousands of years of wars. Now, folks, where did we read that? Go back, and we're going to still pick it up, the Terror Papers. Exactly what it said. And these are two that are completely unrelated in two different publications. Contemporary people don't even realize that they are walking on dead bodies. You're eating dead bodies. All of us are. And being vegetarian doesn't make you exempt. In fact, you have to be eating from the dead bodies. You wouldn't have vegetables. The Himalayas. The largest of these trees was in what is now the Himalaya, Tibet, Mongolia, China, etc. They are the largest, and here you can see how this goes. This is the tree roots. The biggest tree, the greatest empire, was Genghis Khan. It's said that he and other rulers knew the secret, that you didn't have to traverse on the surface. That in every tree where the ancient trees were, every continent has its cave systems. Weird, isn't it? Genghis Khan, who was born in Tujan, was the greatest Khan and the founder of the Mongol Empire, which became the largest continuous empire in history. After his death, he came to power by uniting many of the nomadic tribes through Northeast Asia. It says as well that Peter the Great knew this. And here it's a number of pictures that validate this. I mean, it's quite interesting when you begin to really look into this. And it's just that it's sitting right there in front of us. It's just that we were taught, well, that's just a mountain. Mountains happen because you have continents that push against each other and you have upthrust, of the mantle. Okay. That's your opinion. Evidence would suggest that this was a very large organism that we can't even begin to imagine, because you would never have to walk down on the ground. You could live a whole lifetime and never come down from the trees. So in his findings and his research, he said there's a real interesting thing. All giant silicon-based trees have been brought down with what appears to be an ancient laser technology from one or more points on a surface. Wonder what they were harvesting. And again, look at all the pictures. I know it's hard to look at here. I have the document. And others, there's other channels out there that have covered this as well. I mean, we've all been in times. I mean, you look at this and you go back and go, okay. So he gets into this more and more, goes into each part of these different countries. In Vietnam, You look at these cave systems and they look like roots. Literally, yeah, it's like, look at that. Now, they're huge. I kind of think too that, if you were being attacked on the surface by the small people, you may have gone underground to get away from those pesky fleas, one bite and, you get the plague, Here's even more in Vietnam. This is Son Dong Cave in Vietnam. This is what says the world's biggest cave. Here it is there. When we were in the Vietnam conflict, a lot of these discoveries were made by the GI soldiers there. Here's the one in China. Again, it looks like a root system. Again, more of it. So, Earth, one giant organism, but we're living on a dead organism. It's an interesting thing when you read more of his work is that we're living on a dead planet. Our planet is dying right now. And with the dramatic changes that's taking place, with the weakening of the magnetopause and other things, and now man with weather modification taking what was beyond our ability to comprehend, and now we're messing with it. And all the evidence from our ancestors of all the ancient lands continue to bring out the fact that things are going to be changing. They've changed in the past. They're going to be changing again. And I'm going to pick up on this tomorrow because got this document right here. 100 proofs that the earth is not a globe. Okay. And then there's this one here. The world is a globe theater. There's some strange stuff on here because, again, we get back into this age of dealing with the 1600s, the 1500s, going into the 1600s. Something happened. And we're going to talk about Queen Elizabeth tomorrow. It may be that she was a he, the first transgender. Who can imagine that? And we thought it was new. So, yeah. I mean, the evidence, and it just depends, again, on your point of view, your perspective, I think it's quite interesting that our memories are so finite. We try to, seriously, I mean, how we look at things, it's like Al says, I contend we were giants and then our siblings were modified from less oxygen. That's a very interesting, Al. I could see that. Yeah. Our memories were erased by a later race through technology. Yeah. Yeah. Something's happened. I mean, and maybe we're just getting the bits and pieces of it. But I mean, seriously, archaeology, you think about when an archaeologist comes in, they're having to, in many cases, guess, assume. Now we have satellites that go around our planet. So we know that the planet in itself spins, rotates, what have you. I get that. But then again, I've never been in a position to actually see it. And I don't know. I mean, I can see the satellites and I can see that it's spinning. I get that. So that tells me that, well, it has to be spinning on the other side too. So yeah, but who knows? I don't know. Maybe we all can do a GoFundMe and get our own satellite up there and see if we can send our own bird up there and see if they're just bullshitting us or if they're really telling us the truth. I don't know. All right. But think about the giants. And by the way, we're going to continue on that. The evidence that the giants were here says that, all right, then this just can't be that preposterous. I mean, we have nothing in the annals of Homo sapiens written word other than a few fragmented references to giants. And they've been so corrupted by doctrine that it's very difficult, because then you got in the science that's afraid of admitting to this. Why? Because science is subservient to religion. That was what I was talking yesterday with Trina, is that there was a clear delineation. We were on the path to enlightenment. I am convinced of it. I believe that whether it's 600, 700, 800 years ago, we were on the path. There was something taking place, and then bam, baby, something came in, and it's like they diverted a river. Well, forever young, that's right. I don't feel the earth spin. I don't. Yeah. I agree with you in all of this. Yeah. Smithsonian sucks. Pamela, we could talk in stories on that one. Stan says the sun goes around the earth just as much as the earth goes around the sun. It's true. It's a dance. Yeah. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll pick up on this tomorrow, because there's just so much there. And then, do with it what you want. But you've got professors out there. You've got men and women who are intelligent, who have rational cognitive mastery of their thoughts, one would think. You're welcome, Marty and Heidi. Welcome. And they have found enough substantive evidence to propel their search to quantify their hypothesis. I think it's kind of cool. I kind of like going, this is cool. Jerry, you're welcome. You too, my friend. And I got another study that it's even going to make more of this go, what? All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for being here. Much love to you all. I really enjoy this. I missed this last week. And thank you for coming along for the ride. You're welcome, Lost in Space. Susie Q, much love to you. And all the other Peter Meter, good to see you, buddy. The gatekeepers won't allow truth. Every period, yeah. What's that, Jenny? The new Jack and the Beanstalk. Is that the one that is playing? That's the one that did the movie with? It's odd that Jenny. It's odd that you mentioned that. Nina has her show 1 hour after this one. So hey, Robert V, the Book of Giants we read. Yeah, it's there. Everything is run by the program of religion. Jenny, going to have you on, dear. Going to have you do another show with you. So. All right, folks, much love to everyone. See y'all tomorrow. Be BOSTO to yourself, and then you can be extra BOSTO to everyone else. All right.